We're back for another episode of Capes and Tights. I'm Adam. That's Justin. Oh, wait. It's a different multiverse.
Oh, man. Hey, that was a good one.
That's Adam. I'm Justin. We're back for another episode of Capes and Tights to talk Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So to start off with, I mentioned to someone, I forget what it was, how funny, if you look back, Iron Man was Iron Man 1 or Iron Man 2, Iron Man 3. Yeah. It was like Guardians of the Galaxy is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. And then we get to Doctor Strange, and it's like Doctor Strange is going to have this massively long title that explains some things, but I don't know, just to kick it off, there's not much multiversal madness on this. So I'll start off, before we get even closer, I love the movie. I'm not going to get anywhere past, like, the movie was a good movie. So that's just start off with any negative things I had to say about this movie. The movie was a good movie. But it wasn't the multiversal madness that I thought was going to happen. That's what I'm
glad you said it, because, and in my own way, and we'll get into it, the same thing. I really thought this movie was super fun.
Yes.
I loved the just weird, crazy elements of stuff that were in it. But yeah, I also, as we get into this, have some major issues as well.
So question, the whole madness part of it, the multiversal madness, is it the fault of the internet, the reason why I had such different expectations for the movie? Like, is it the fact that there was rumors beyond rumors about what could happen in this movie, that when it didn't happen to hardly anything that said on the internet, we were disappointed about it, but really it's not their fault for making the movie because it's the internet's fault?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, again, I don't want to shoot my big shot here at the beginning, but it ended up feeling like a very small movie. Like, I felt like there weren't giant ramifications. Yes. I felt like sure, there was stuff happening in different universes, but whatever. It is just kind of a side story.
You said universes, though. Also, is it really universes?
We're
it's really
right.
Two. It was this one and another one.
Well, that's true. It's two of them. So it was the two universes of not madness. But I mean, you're right. No, exactly. No, go ahead. You're right.
So my laughable point on it is there technically, and again, I don't want to have to say it over and over again. The movie was a good movie. Mm-hmm. I don't want to say it again. So that's the last time I'm going to hopefully say that as a preface to what I'm going to say. It's I'm not racist, but, and there was more multiversal ramifications and more multiversal stuff in Spider-Man.
Oh, holy moly. Yeah, there was big time.
Do you know what I mean? There was already three different universes. There's already one more multiverse in Spider-Man No Way Home than there was in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. That we saw more multiverses, but we didn't actually have connections to more than basically two. And you see, like I said, small touches here and there, but there was no impact outside of the two universes that you see. What was considered Earth 838 and what's considered... Okay.
Was it 616?
Yes, but this is whenever I'm going to complain again. This is again, huge Marvel fan here.
Yeah.
So we were under the understanding, and I haven't read much on it, and I haven't seen a lot of things on the internet. I haven't done much research into this yet because I kind of wanted to get this episode done before I did more research on that. Is for the longest time, we were under the understanding that the MCU was Earth 199999. That was the MCU, that it was a Earth 199,999 was the Earth that we're in the MCU.
Okay.
Which gave it the freedom to do whatever it wanted compared to the comic books, because it's a different multiverse than the comic books. However, right now, the current universe in the comic books is Earth 616. So now we're saying that we are in the same universe as the comic books, yet there are different things that happen in this.
Yeah, totally.
So hypothetically, we're going to get into Miss Marvel at some point in a couple of weeks. Yep. But hypothetically, she has different power set and a different origin story than she does in the comic books. But yet she's in Earth 1616 and she's in Earth 1616. So that to me was a weird thing. They didn't need to do that. They could have said when they went to the other universe, they could have said, we call yours Earth 199,999 and we're Earth 838. But for some reason they said 616, and I do not know why, because it isn't 616 or what I thought was 616. So we'll get that out of the way too. But before we go far into it, I want to say it came out May 6th. Okay. That's and the cool thing about this is Adam and I have had to wait a long time to watch them as we get
Yep.
them, waiting for them to be digitally released, because that's what we normally do here. Spider-Verse, or Spider-Man No Way Home, it's because it was a Sony-owned film. It took way longer for it to actually get into digital.
Yep.
But this actually was in that 45-day window that Disney said that they would potentially would do from movie being released to movie being in the home. May 6th to June 22nd was a month and a half, or almost 2 months. So like, that's not a bad time to wait for a movie to actually be released digitally, in my opinion. And it's free. Like, you watched it on Disney Plus and it was free. Like, you didn't, again, the free, because you pay the monthly subscription, but there was no premium charge to watch it 45 days ish after it came out in the theaters. It was made for $200 million, and it's just shy. I say just shy, 947 million worldwide. So it's just shy of $1 billion for a Doctor Strange film. I wouldn't have put money on the fact that it would have made this much money after seeing Doctor Strange 1 in 2016. A Doctor Strange film would make almost $1 billion. It was directed by the great Sam Raimi, who obviously did the Spider-Man Tobey Maguire movies, but also did the Evil Dead franchise, amongst other things. But I think he's mostly...
This is where you're going to hear one of my complaints.
Okay. And Evil Dead franchise. So he's mostly known for his Evil Dead work. Obviously, it was produced by Kevin Feige, and the music was done by the great Danny Elfman. So a lot of cool connections here with the whole top on the actors that are in it, with Benedict Cumberbatch and, you know, those people that are like, and Elizabeth Olsen, we've learned to love and seen to love, but also having a historically well-known director and a historically well-known composer doing the music and the directing of the movie is awesome. So those are big things to me in this film. I think it's a Sam Raimi film.
It is definitely a Sam Raimi film.
Whether it's good or bad, depending on if you're a big Sam Raimi fan, you know, for better or for worse, it's a Sam Raimi film. He has his imprint on it. And this is the 5th movie in phase 4 and the 28th film in the universe altogether. So we're getting up there so what will be next? Thor: Love and Thunder will be 29. Black Panther will be number 30. So that's pretty freaking insane. We're into the James Bond territory of Marvel or universes. But quick sip of my coffee that has not enough cream in it. So yeah, let's just talk off the top, talk the Sam Raimi. Let's get that out there.
Well, because mine is complicated. Sam Raimi. I mean, Evil Dead. The guy's like a legend in horror, and I love horror. And I loved Tobey Maguire. And when I heard he was directing this, I was like, oh my God, this is like the perfect match for Raimi. And it was. I really enjoyed this movie again. But we all get it. You did Evil Dead. I get it. You've done it 18,000 times now in TV and in cameos. And so like, there was way too much of Evil Dead encroaching on it. To me, it almost like kind of broke the world for me. I just kept going like, well, yeah, that's Sam Raimi. Well, yeah, that's Evil Dead.
So, but the big thing to me was that it's a Sam Raimi stamped film, which then can just debunk completely the rumors out there that Marvel will not let their directors have their own take on a film. The rumor out there for the longest time was that Marvel has this like handcuffs on their directors and writers that you have to do the Marvel way of making a movie. We've now been proven with James Gunn, with Taika Waititi. I mean, I would even put in what's her face who did Shang-Chi. And this film, that the directors have more say than the rumors of the world say they have, because if they didn't, Sam Raimi wouldn't have had a big enough stamp on this movie. And so that will be said, just debunk that now. Let's get past that rumor that these people are allowed to make the movie that they're allowed to make. There's obviously some rules, like you have to stick within certain things, but this is a Sam Raimi film through and through. So
it is. It totally is.
And it's also written by what's his face who wrote Loki. I didn't write that down, but the guy who wrote Loki wrote this film as well. The TV show Loki. So there's some previous superhero world thing. It was a horror film, but not scary horror. There's honestly moments where I'm like, this is PG-13. There was moments of that. The monster at the beginning that gets his eye stabbed, like that when the whole eye comes out of the monster and lands on the ground, like that was like graphic. The jump scares at time when Wanda crawls through the mirror dimension thing that they do in Camouflage, and she like
that was cool.
It was like that was like, hey, that was horror.
Yes. And I guess that's my point I want to make. I loved this. And I thought Sam Raimi was going to do like all of these big elements of like horror. So that's not my complaint, is that it wasn't good. I just felt like it was a little indulgent using just his brand of horror. Cause like you said, that had like a little ring feel to it. Or, you know, which is excellent. That's the best kind of part of this movie, is when it does that right.
Well, we've talked about it, how like people need to stop putting superhero movies into this one realm of that their title is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness superhero film. It's Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness in a superhero world horror film.
Exactly.
Like, you know, Ant-Man is a heist film, and you can think Thor Ragnarok is a comedy. Like you have these sub genres that you need to be able to put these in, and this does fit that genre. It's not if anybody out there who wants like barely can watch the screen, need the lights on to watch the movie, kind of horror thriller movie, this is not that movie. But it has those elements that makes it go, okay, you can slide it into that category. If I was to say, name top 10 horror movies over the past 10 years, you could put this in that category if you liked it that much. It has those horror elements. The fact when Wanda is walking in 838 and walking into the lobby of the facility they're in, and she's got the blood on her face and she's kind of like walking all creepily, like that's not in any other Marvel movie. Like this is 28 films later. 27 other Marvel movies does not have the slight jump scares and horror-esque feel that this movie has. It's for sure.
And again, great cinematography. That was, again, like a lot of Evil Dead inspired shots where you can tell the way it's laid on the floor, crooked shots. And again, I'm not saying I don't like it.
Yes.
It was like, if that had been a part of this huge kind of homage to different things, but it worked well though. It was a really well shot film. I mean, it made you feel kind of anxious, yes. And that's the thing, is it made you feel uneasy. You did feel uneasy in this movie at times, where you're just like, oh, and we'll get into, I want to get into the whole Wanda being a villain versus the regular thing. And I didn't know where they were going to go, who the villain was going to be in this, because it kind of felt like maybe Mordo would be the villain after seeing Doctor Strange 1. But making Wanda the villain actually was, I think, was a cool way of doing it. If anybody reads the comic books, she is bad at points in the comic book, so I like that aspect of it. But to finish up we'll probably touch on Sam Raimi, but to finish up that he had to put Bruce Campbell in the movie also twice. Was like twice
like okay, we again, like Adam said before, we get it, you did Evil Dead, move on, but you didn't need to put Ash from Evil Dead in the movie to say that. So if I was a humongous Evil Dead fan, I would have felt like, oh, this is amazing. They put a cameo of Bruce Campbell in here. This is fun. I understand it. It just, to me, was like they didn't need, if he was in the background, he walked past, but he had speaking lines. He had a line that was actually something that, and to me,
even
was
if he like you had a line, handed him a hot dog, said something funny, fine.
Moved on.
But the fact that it bookended with a post-credit scene, I was like, don't ever do that again, man. Like,
so Adam, you mentioned it, right?
Yeah.
The best thing I did like about that post-credit scene is that we all who went to see, I went to see it in theaters, we all waited for that. Yeah. That was me, Marvel and Sam Raimi and other people potentially had other thoughts in this, making it go, you waited for that. And that kind of made me funny, where he says, what did he say at the end? He said,
it's over.
It's over. And it's like, oh my God, we waited for that. So I'm glad they put that as the post-credit scene and not the mid-credit scene, because I do like how they kind of like tongue-in-cheeked the fact that we all waited in the theater for that, or you waited in your living room to go to bed, waiting for that to happen. And that's what you got
for what was it, like 3 weeks or something?
Yes. So, speaking of the monster, we talked about at the very beginning, the grossness to it. That's actually Elizabeth Olsen's eye. Did you see that online?
That's cool. No, that's super cool.
Her eye as the focus of that eye, which is great, because as we learn in the movie, she's the one that sends that monster after America Chavez in the movie too. That's
cool.
I think the biggest thing he said is the Raimi part of it. I think what saved the movie was the acting. I think there wasn't a bad person in this movie. It's just another check on the box of Marvel doing amazing job casting. I think Soidel, I can't ever remember how to say her name. Soidel Chavez. No, her name's Chavez, but it's I always mix this up. I'm gonna look it up too.
When that was, even while you're looking it up with America Chavez, that was a really new character for me, which I thought was interesting. And, in this show was, I'm sure from you, as we all know, Justin reads a lot more comics, but I'm sure America Chavez was much more introduced to you through comic book reading.
Yeah,
and for me, it was a very new character.
My brother has the biggest complaint after I saw him at my son's birthday, which was a couple of weeks after I saw this movie, or a week after. So he had seen it, and we kind of chatted a little bit too. And his upsetness of this is that they're starting to encroach on adding newly created characters to movies when they haven't touched all the old characters yet.
Sure.
And so like there's a bunch of women characters out that potentially could be in this movie that they haven't got to yet. But I feel like there's a reason. There's a reason they needed to have some way to travel between the multiverses. In the comic books, the way they travel between multiverses, there's a lot have to do with Reed Richards in the Fantastic Four, which they haven't touched yet. So if you're going to do the multiversal part now without getting to that point yet, you have to have a reason. And she is a multiversal character in the comic book. So I understand the creative her. I haven't read much on America Chavez. Like I haven't done there. She has her own book. She is connected to the multiverse in a sense. It's Xochitl Gomez is the actress who played America Chavez. She's actually, honestly, she was in a couple of things on TV, and she was in a couple of small roles in a short film, and so on. So she hasn't been much. And when we get to Miss Marvel, the Miss Marvel character also has never acted professionally until this TV show, which also, cool. If anybody's seen it yet so far, I'm very surprised because she's very good in the show. The comedy is still like the fact that we have a horror film, but MCU still has their comedy humor stamp on it is great too. When they talk to America Chavez for the first time in the coffee or the pizza shop, and she's eating this pizza, and he's like, I've dealt with multiverses before in Spider-Man, which is a cool callback to Spider-Man. So obviously, you know this happens after Spider-Man. And she goes, Spider-Man, he shoots webs. He goes, does he shoot webs out of his butt? No. I don't think he does.
And honestly, that's where Sam Raimi was a brilliant choice for this. I mean, if you're trying to keep that kind of funny horror brand, he's the guy. Again, I don't have any complaints about that. I think that's amazing.
So she was great. I think Benedict obviously is always great in anything he does. His American accent is growing on me for sure. I think he took me times. I like his British accent a lot more when you see him in stuff like The Imitation Game and his Sherlock Holmes stuff and all that stuff. But I do like him as Doctor Strange. I think he's a perfect casting for Doctor Strange. I've absolutely love Elizabeth Olsen's Wanda. Like she is just
she's fantastic. Perfect. Yep.
I think we missed out a little bit on Christine Palmer and Rachel McAdams. I think again, for some reason, they bring this character into both Doctor Strange movies, and both times they basically just punt on her. She had some more lines in this movie and more impact in this movie, her multiversal partner. But I just feel like they missed a little bit on that. Like Rachel McAdams could have been more of a role in this movie with the multiversal part of it.
I agree.
I don't know. It's different in each. There's could be a reason. I don't know why that reason's there, but like, and then obviously, but Wong was great, and all the other characters that were around.
Wong was fantastic.
But yeah, so I think the acting to me, if you just summarized everything, we just skipped the rest of this podcast. Sam Raimi, a little too much Sam Raimi, but the acting saved it to me and made it a good movie. So that's part of that, part of that. There's a little bit of clunky lines. People complain about the writing. I don't know if you've read that on the internet about his writing. Michael Wall.
Well, again, think back to the original Spider-Man movies too with their direct. I mean, it was that kind of campy horror. Like aesthetic to it, I guess. There
was no, I guess there was the fight, the Danny Elfman music fight. Was that the black suit Spider-Man of this movie? The Sam Raimi, weird twisted way that was actually better than that black suit Spider-Man part in Spider-Man 3 was absolutely horrendous. It was awful, so bad. But this was there, but it was cool and unique and innovative. But I feel like it was this movie's version of Sam Raimi's. Like, I'm gonna go a little weird with this and see how it sticks, and it stuck. I think it stuck well. I think it was cool. I think. I don't know if it was necessary, but it was cool to see that little fight. And then Danny Elfman. I don't know if Danny Elfman can do anything wrong. Honestly, I think he is.
Oh, he's another pretty epic movie music writer.
Yeah, we talked about that when we did our Obi-Wan Kenobi review about John Williams and him still doing his stuff, and then having Danny Elfman be the next podcast we do Danny Elfman music.
Like, we've talked on several other podcasts too, and it's that Disney thing where like, I mean, you get a series, and I mean, like you said, Danny Elfman, John Williams. I mean, those are like some of the probably greatest living names in like movie music, and they're making stuff for series for Disney. Like that's incredible.
Yes. So it's Danny Elfman also, like he's a not just a score composer, he's a musician. He plays in bands and he's done all that kind of stuff too. But you can look up his resume and it's just there's just hit after hit after hit after hit after hit. We'll say with the America Chavez part of it, just to go back to that really quickly, is not an origin story. I like the fact that she was introduced in this movie and we didn't get an America Chavez origin story. It was a step on this memory thing hub that shows a little bit about who she was and where she came from and what happened, why she's kind of depressed about the world because she basically thinks she killed her parents. They touched on the, LGBTQ plus stuff without actually going into it and being like, my parents were gay, which is awesome. I love that. I think that's like, their way of saying, we don't have to be like, oh, my parents, my mom and my mom. You just show it and it's there. And she wore the pin and support of the community. And so that was cool. I like that stuff, but not having a origin story and just be like, okay, a long 15-minute thing. It was a quick 3-minute thing to show this is how it happens, that you can't control her powers and moving on. And I love that. I think that was perfect about it. The memory bank thing reminded me of Back to the Future. I don't know why, but like when you stepped on it.
Totally. Yeah.
And like when in Back to the Future, when Marty McFly like walks into the little public area and there's like big screens and all that stuff, and he hears to me, it had this like Back to the Future-esque thing where they stepped on something that you'd have to pay for in the future of like Back to the Future. So that was pretty cool. It was, and maybe it was written that way. Maybe it was homage to Back to the Future. I don't know.
It could have been.
But yeah, it was pretty cool to see that. Multiversal stuff, dude. So are you for multiversal stuff? Like, are you on board with multiversal stuff? Like the idea behind getting to see characters in other universes? Or are you? Right
now, it feels like it's at its fevered pitch for me. And I think it's kind of fun and I'm ready for it to be done.
Okay.
Just because it seems to be at that point, like, I mean, you can kind of make any story eventually work through the multiverse, but as they're doing it now, I think it's super fun where they're realizing that it's dangerous too,
Yes. So my personal thing was the ability to create characters that have no emotional connection that you can off and not worry about it. We saw that in the what if part where like Doctor Strange multiversal, when he did the whole, if you saw that episode of What If, which is one of the best episodes of the What If series, with him like trying to find the multiverse that has him and Rachel McAdams, not Rachel McAdams, but like what's her name? I just said it. What's her name in the I literally can't believe I just have a break for on this.
You just said it and I'm trying to think of it too.
Wow. Christine Palmer. Jesus, Christine, trying to find his Christine in other universes and finding that he actually imploded one and having that be not care. Cool. There's infinite number of multiverses. We can kill one and no one is the wiser and no one cares. You didn't kill Iron Man arbitrarily. You killed a version of Iron Man arbitrarily, if that makes sense.
No, it totally does. Because that's what I mean. Because I guess it doesn't bother me if it kept going under the title of What If. Like, I don't mind if multiverse stuff occasionally comes into the big storyline, but I guess what you're saying, like, if they would continue like a whole like subsection of Marvel that's kind of What If, that would be excellent. What If is still one of my favorite series. I would love live action What If stories. Well,
and this actually kind of like, this is the first. So two things. This movie is the first MCU movie to reference a MCU TV show. So far, the TV shows have referenced the movies in a sense, because obviously some of the TV shows have movie characters in it, but they actually reference Wanda in WandaVision doing what she did in WandaVision. And they also reference with Zombie, Strange, and the animated universe that they fly through when Strange is saving America Chavez. They find these connections. So now we know that the What If animated side of it is actually a universe
exactly
MCU, which is really cool, and seeing that, and that's now we see why they said that you should watch the What If series to get what's going on in the future, and so on. But also, you didn't need to see WandaVision to understand what was going on here. She talks about it, she references it a little bit, but it's not like you missed something completely by not seeing that. But the only thing I don't want them to do is the whole dream thing that some movies do where it's like, oh, this whole thing was a dream.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want them to just have to be like, oh, we killed off Wanda. And you're like, oh, cool. And they're like, but that was a different universe. And they went to another universe and they brought the character back. Because then death means nothing. That death isn't actually any problem. We can just bring someone from another multiverse and bam, we've got the character back again. So as long as they don't do that, I like these small moments where there's ability to see characters and ability. What I've said since the beginning of this whole Fox purchase by Disney is I want, and this they did with Spider-Man, I want every single comic book related Marvel thing that's ever been created to be canon, as long as it's in another multiverse and you can say it's in another multiverse, done, move on. So now they've done it with Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield in Spider-Man. Those two Spider-Mans are real Spider-Mans. You watch the movies, you can say this does relate to a future movie in the MCU.
Exactly.
But they talked about it in the MCU. And if they do make another one of those movies for each of those characters, they're not connected to knowing who Iron Man is, but they're canon. And so I want that.
No,
but I don't want that to continue always being the thing. I don't want to like, we can save people by grabbing
so
someone
I guess
in the
that's it. To get back to your question, is it's just something I feel like they need to be careful with, because I do agree with you. I mean, even though it sounds dumb to people that don't like nerd out in this, like to know that this storyline that you are invested in is canon, it just doesn't have any impact on the storyline that we see most of the time, or the universe rather that we see most of the time. So as a like story plot device, I think it's brilliant because it's fiction. Why not do whatever you want? And yet, like you said, there's something about messing with the canon too much that then makes it not feel real. So it's just a balance.
I do think, and if we've talked about, and maybe we'll do an article or some sort of post or some sort of bonus thing about, again, revisiting the whole, where do you think they'll go from here kind of thing, is we have heard multiple times, and it has to do with the post-credit scene, and we'll get there, the mid-credit scene, multiple times, 3 times in the actual movie and 1 time in the post-credit scene, the word incursion used. So the future of this, I do believe we'll get a lot of multiversal stuff, and then they'll have an incursion like they do in Secret Wars in the comic book, and all the universes will fight and implode on something, and that will be the big bad like Thanos. And moving forward, maybe it's 5, maybe it's 10 years from now, like the the next big arc. Maybe if this is the rest of phase 4, the rest of phase 5, and moving into 6. There'll be one universe again. They won't ever talk about multiverse again, because there is no multiverse anymore, because they all merged into one. And that's where we get Fantastic Four. That's where we get mutants. That's where we get, maybe at the future, we get Spider-Man and Venom and all them in the same universe. So
exactly. And I'm all for that too. So no, I think you're right. I love how it works for keeping the story going, but at some point I'd like to see it pared back down.
Correct.
But
and it might take time. This is like one of those things that I've heard other podcasts and other people talk about, that they thought maybe at the end of Multiverse of Madness, it would close the multiverse. But as we know with Loki, as we know with this show, there's other universes that are happening and being out there that we need to see to get a realm on things. And speaking of that, let's talk a little bit about the multiverse they went to. So they went to 838. First of all, as you're a big comic book nerd, those little robots are called Ultron Sentries. They're basically, if Ultron Initiative worked, man, too much coffee. If the Ultron Initiative worked, this is what it would be. Like Ultron Sentries would be the protection, the guard, all that stuff. So that's kind of a cool twist. It throws back to when Age of Ultron, when Tony Stark tried to create this Ultron Initiative, and it worked. So the Sentries is a working thing. And then the Illuminati. So you have Captain Carter from What If, Sorcerer Supreme Mordo. So if Mordo was good instead of bad. Black Bolt from the failed ABC TV show. That's the actual actor.
I know, that
from
was
that
hilarious.
Show. Monica Rambeau, who was in the Captain Marvel movie, but if she became Captain Marvel. Reed Richards, his first appearance in the MCU, and a fan-serviced John Krasinski as Reed Richards. That the rumor came out yesterday or today that it was basically for the fans, that this is the only time he's going to play Reed Richards, that there isn't like another multiverse that it was awesome, because it gave all the fans what we wanted, and you don't need to have him sign on for 10 movies. You can just be done. The Fox X-Men's Professor X.
That was I loved that.
In the X-Men animated series wheelchair. So that's like, it's not the direct Fox X-Men Professor X. It's another multiverse probably that has the same character from the X-Men Fox and the wheelchair from the animated series in one other universe that's connected in that way. And did you hear in the background when he wheeled his little wheelchair on there, Danny Elfman weaved in the original animated show's theme song as Professor X wheeled his chair, hovered his chair up to the Illuminati, which is absolutely outstanding. I think all of those characters being added, and then they basically did a Deadpool, right? Deadpool 2, Deadpool 1.
Yep.
Was it Deadpool 2 when they created a team and all of them went out there and he basically had all these no-name superheroes that died.
Yes. I love that.
They basically did the same thing in here because they killed all of them.
My interesting thing too is, so we often watch our Disney Plus with the subtitles on for my father-in-law, and I often leave them on because whatever. But when he talks in Multiverse of Madness, it says Xavier 1997.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Which was the last year that the animated series was on.
So they also go through in that multiversal, like the thing where they went to the paint one, and they went to the one where so that one, the cubes come out of his face, I think was an homage to, there's a cover by I think it's Joe Quesada in House of M that is Wanda with all those cubes coming out of her face as part of her like No More Mutants thing, where a lot of this like a WandaVision-esque thing is coming from, the evil part of Wanda. So I don't think we're actually going to revisit that universe again, but it was cool seeing that because it was more of an homage to that cover. But also they went through an animated one. They went through an animated universe. In my mind, that was either What If or it was X-Men 97, which is the animated show coming to Disney Plus in 2023, that they went through that universe. So I think that's really cool to see that the animated universe is a multiverse, which is really cool.
And I was wondering what her joke was like. Yeah, it's really hard to eat there.
Yes.
In the anime.
Yes. It's awesome. While we're talking the Illuminati, I did have a note on here. I wanted to tell people, so the comic book Illuminati, the first one that comes in around the Secret Wars time, so that does make sense to have the Illuminati introduced if they're going the Secret Wars way, was Tony Stark, who obviously is dead, so he can't obviously have him in this. Well, he can if in different multiverse, but I don't think they wanted to bring back Robert Downey Jr. for this. Reed Richards, which makes sense. Black Bolt, which makes sense. Doctor Strange is the one going to see the Illuminati, so they switched that out for Mordor. Professor X. And then the other one is Namor. So Namor hasn't been introduced yet into the Marvel universe. So I think at some point he will be, and there's rumors that he'll be in, it might be in Black Panther that he'll be in, because Black Panther and Namor have a connection.
Yep, that would totally make sense.
With both being like the fictional kind of Atlantis-esque places. And so they swapped out, they obviously put Captain Carter on there. And they also, so technically the first one also introduced Black Panther. He was added just after the original group was added. And I'm sure they didn't want to touch Black Panther because A, the movie's coming out in the fall, and B, obviously we lost Chadwick Boseman. So I don't know if they want to, like, who the next Black Panther wasn't going to be given away in this movie. It's going to be given away in that movie. So they just didn't touch that. So Captain Carter replaced one of them. And then obviously Monica Rambeau as Captain Marvel replaced the other one, which was between Namor and Black Panther. Did you hear the rumor ahead of time, though, that they were trying to see if the original casting of Tony Stark was going to be
yes, Tom Cruise,
and that they talked about having him as a Illuminati member on this, having Tom Cruise as Iron Man. I thought that would have been cool. I think the reason they didn't do that is because they said his scheduling conflict was the original reason that they didn't do that. But I do think it's too soon to bring back someone else in an Iron Man suit, even if it's in another multiverse, in my opinion. He is dead. None of the other characters they brought up there were either dead or been introduced yet. So having that be don't putting an Iron Man in there was smart, I think, in my opinion.
I think what they did was perfect. Like you said, I think the fan service, John Krasinski, Reed Richards is awesome. And like you said, and the animated series Xavier, like I that's, to me at least, that's way better than trying to like fit Tom Cruise into the equation. And I just loved it. I mean,
so if we had a top 10 list, you and I, if we put a top 10 list, which we kind of cool could do at some point in the future, was awesome Marvel MCU moments. The wheeling out of Professor X in the 97 wheelchair and the music playing in the background might be in my top 10 greatest moments in MCU history, because it just shows us the love we had. Super, I mean, I know Blade came out around the same time as X-Men, but X-Men was what Super Marvel movies, it was the kickstart to Marvel movies, was the X-Men series.
Without a doubt.
Professor X, played there by Patrick Stewart, was absolutely amazing. And I love how they kind of gave it away in the trailer too, that you knew it was coming. It wasn't like a big surprise. The other surprises were Black Bolt and John Krasinski. Those are the surprises. That Professor X actually wasn't the surprise because you hear his voice in the trailer.
Yeah. I mean, other podcasts, we talk about the same kind of, referencing cartoons and all that, we talk about Star Wars a lot. And I forgot my thought with that, but what they're doing a good job of is bringing in that kind of, so the animated series, for instance, right? We talk about the prequels a lot with Star Wars. Nobody really, except the big hardcore comic book nerds, watch that series like you and I did. But for me, seeing them even acknowledge that 97, that series was so good. If you haven't seen it, go see it right now. So I think that's what, again, Disney knows not to dismiss that kind of stuff because it's important.
And the home base for the Capes and Tights podcast and capesandtights.com is in Maine and at the Bangor Comic and Toy Con Another Wicked in the fall. If you are listening to this podcast and you live in Maine or in the area, 2 cast members or voice actors from the original animated X-Men TV show are coming to get. So Gambit, who played the last few episodes.
That's awesome. Yep.
And then Rogue, who the entire time played Rogue. Awesome. And she also is she's reprising that role in X-Men 97 coming out. So she'll be in the new one as well.
That's
in
fantastic.
The meantime, she sat on Parliament in Canada.
There you go.
So she went from voice acting of an X-Men character to Parliament in Canada to back to voice acting in an X-Men animated show. Speaking of the Illuminati dude, the deaths. Okay, so now we talked about how this horror-esque aspect to it because of Raimi. The idea that it was probably at the borderline of a PG-13 movie just with some of these things that happened. And these deaths were freaking dope. I didn't want to see any of these characters die.
No.
But the fact that and the line she used, what was the line she used? Is your wife alive? And he goes, yes, she's alive. And, I have 2 kids or whatever. And she goes, good. Then someone can take care of the kids when you're gone. And then she freaking used his power to make him stretch out into nothing.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Or you were talking earlier Black about Bolt. Kind of I was going to say the PG-13 references there, but that just as I'll let what happens, but what a great little Matrix reference too.
Yes.
I loved absolutely. That.
Yes. But also the cool thing is they didn't also have to they didn't explain who Black Bolt was too much because you're like, part of it was because they were about to kill him. So they're like, no one really cares. But the idea that they didn't, his voice is his weapon. And so having that and sealing his mouth up and doing that was just absolutely crazy. And then
his head imploding was pretty brutal for a PG-13.
Yes. Taylor went, oh, geez. Oh my God. And then cutting, you don't see it, but you know what happens.
Yep.
Captain Carter gets cut in half.
Yep.
That kind of stuff is just, those deaths were like, oh my God, I cannot believe that just happened. And it shows the villain side of Wanda in that aspect of that she wants, nothing is going to get in her way. And she is one of the, if not the most powerful person in the MCU right now, and showing her ability to tear through an entire super group of superheroes.
Yep.
Like they were nothing, showed her powers and showed what she would do to get what she wanted, which was
totally
the whole point of the movie, which is basically she wants to be near her sons. She obviously doesn't give 2 shits about Vision. She's not trying to get to Vision.
I know. We never.
She just wants to get these sons that she created. Vision was an actual, at least sentient being, whereas their kids were figments of her imagination, and she was still trying to get to her kids and not to Vision. The theory is that Vision might be the only Vision, just like America Chavez is the only Chavez.
Sure.
So this theory is that there isn't no other Vision out there that she can go after. That his vision is in her universe.
Well, I like that. I like that a lot.
You think that's the Baxter building where they are?
Ooh, I didn't think about that, but it could be. That would be pretty excellent.
The technology and all that stuff. It'd be really cool if it was, or it's a original building for them. And that in the theory, as the thing goes along, that they move, I think they move into Stark Tower, Avengers Tower in New York City.
Totally.
At the end of Homecoming, where they're moving out, I think that's going to be moving in. It's going to be the Fantastic Four. So Wanda, she does awesome. I think she was a great acting. She the field of apple trees, and then Doctor Strange going to see her, and then she mistakenly names America Chavez by name, and that's where, and she mentions the whole thing that the hardest part of making that fake town wasn't making the fake town, it was the lying. The entire time, that lying was her biggest problem. That's her hardest part. And that's what happened. She says, why don't you just bring America here? And then Dr. Strange realizes that it's not, she never said America Chavez. And that's when he finds out. And obviously it goes around and the Darkhold comes up and all that stuff was pretty cool. She calls herself Scarlet Witch for the first time.
She does.
Which is awesome. She obviously has the Darkhold. Did you think that it was a little too easy to kill the Darkhold?
Oh yeah.
Like what's her name? The on Carmitage, she just goes over and stabs the Darkhold. Yeah. She dies, but the Darkhold just goes away. And I'm like, wow, why hasn't someone just done this a while ago? Like, why is this book even around if it's just easy just to stab the thing and it's done? That's the whole Star Wars.
It is.
Blah.
Yeah. And it's also, I mean, I guess their books, that was another one of those classic Raimi moments where I'm like, oh my gosh, it's the Book of the Dead times two or what, you know, but like, but yeah, that's like we said, we all have those moments where we're like, but why did 12 superheroes try to destroy it? And now this kid stepped on it and it's gone. Done. Yeah. So.
And then there's an original place and all that stuff. I do love when she takes Wong and makes Wong bring her to the mountain that has the thing. And she goes, why did you bring us here? Why didn't you bring us way up there? And he's like, my magic can only go so far. And then she just picks him up and flies up there. It was pretty funny. It was like, oh my gosh. Yeah, that's a good point. They always do that in places. They always teleport to the like, still a journey to walk. Why don't you just teleport to the actual place? Yeah. But he made a good explanation about, can't go that far because his magic can only do so much. Yep. Which is pretty cool. And then speaking of Wong was excellent in this movie too. I think
he really was.
It's funny how much Wong has been a part of the MCU, being a secondary character in the first Doctor Strange. And since 2016, he's been in like almost every Marvel movie. Yes. And
my wife Annie was, you know Annie, of course, but my wife, she was like that same thing. She was like, who is that? And I was like, who is that? That's Wong.
He's in like everything.
Wong's in every movie.
Was he in Shang-Chi? Yeah, he was in Shang-Chi because with Abomination battles, the fight battles, he was just in Spider-Man. Yep. Because the connection to Doctor Strange. He's been in this, he's been in other movies, he's been in the Infinity War and Endgame. Like literally out of the past 15 or 10 MCU movies, he's been in like 8 of them. And it's kind of funny. He was kind of a throwaway character in a sense in the first Doctor Strange. Yet he's been that Jon Favreau-esque character, the Happy Hogan-esque character, that the two of them can just be thrown in any movie and it'd be a fun little like, and he's the Sorcerer Supreme technically.
And I was getting ready to say that. Yeah, exactly.
I love how they reference that over and over again too. It's it's custom for the people to bow to the Sorcerer Supreme. And at the end he just bows and goes and then walks away. Those are like, that's the humor I love about Marvel movies.
You said exactly what I was going to say. Is like what I love about them is saying like, hey, let's make Wong the Sorcerer Supreme. Yes, that's awesome because that joke will never end because it will always be under Doctor Strange's, back of his head that he's not the sorcerer. I love it.
So speaking of, as you're jumping all over the place, it's a fun movie, and that's the reason why I feel like we're jumping all over the place. There's multiversal stuff in it. There's Doctor Strange stuff in there. There's Wanda stuff in there. The introduction of America Chavez. We said last week in our episode on Obi-Wan Kenobi I mentioned about how I don't want to shit on the DC universe over and over and over again, but this movie was technically dark. Like it technically was like a dark themed movie about the Darkhold and black magic and multiversal problems and that world they go to, the 838 or the place they go to. Actually, I guess they do go to 3 because that 838 is not the place they go to with the stuff that's dying, right? So they technically go to 3 multiverses now that I think about it. But that place, it's dark, but it's not dark. Do you understand that? Like the movie still has a brightness to it that it's like, okay, we're dark. We're talking about dark things, sad moments. And it's not pitch black where you're like, I don't know what's going on in the background.
No.
That's something that DC needs to learn from. You can make a dark movie. You can make a horror movie that has some brightness in there and colors and lights and different camera shots that make it so that you understand what's going on still.
And that's where, to take a full reversal on what I said before, that's why Sam Raimi was able to do this movie, because that's his specialty, is really dark horror that's somehow still funny. Like
absolutely. And that we saw Zombie Strange is a dark, cool thing. Great. And the fact that he took over the body was awesome. I love that. That was pretty funny. Like I didn't see it coming as much as I probably should have seen it coming when they buried the body.
I didn't see it coming.
Because maybe we didn't know about dream walking as much. We didn't have that dream walking aspect of it. I love that implement of it, like the way that you can like
cool.
dream walk into someone, and that dreams are not really dreams; they're just you in another multiverse, which is really cool. And that's the reason why America Chavez doesn't have dreams is because she's not available in any other universe. Those were all cool parts of the movie and well-written parts and well, the story arcs and all that stuff. My biggest thing on this movie, Adam, as I wrote my like little overall thing was, I think this movie right now that we just watched it it's a good movie. It's I think it was slightly better than the original Doctor Strange movie. It's not an Endgame, it's not an Infinity War, it's not a Ragnarok movie. But I think it might be way more beneficial to us 6 movies from now. Like, I feel like this is the stepping stone to push off the block, not Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi was the introduced character, I think. You're talking, Spider-Man was finishing up a storyline with Tom Holland's Spider-Man. Yeah, the Eternals, again, introducing characters into the MCU. All these different shows that are coming out and things that are coming out, Miss Marvel. Those were introductions. You're talking a character that 2 characters or multiple characters that were from the original phases, pre-Thanos, pre-Snap, that are going into this thing, and they're going to use this as a launching pad for what's going to happen in the future. This is launching into Thor: Love and Thunder. This is launching into Black Panther. This is launching into what the next big story is, which potentially, and I put money on it, is Secret Wars. But we're going to go watch. We do a rewatch to watch phase 4 over again. And this movie's going to mean a lot more. And we're going to go, oh, that's why they did it this way. And oh, this is what's going on. And I understand all that stuff in the future. So it's one of those movies that I feel like, because the MCU is a 28 film saga, that this movie means more when you have other movies around it. And we haven't got to the other movies around it yet because we haven't watched the next movie. And I think that's a huge thing for it. Go ahead.
No, I agree. I was gonna say, but I think that's again what Marvel does so well in identifying that, like, Doctor Strange is for some reason a really good vessel to bring the other storylines in. So I'm like you, I'm kind of like, on the surface, I'm always like, man, a whole movie about Doctor Strange, but they bring so much in with Doctor Strange that when I see one coming, I know it's important to the story. Like, big time.
And it's hard to believe if you think about it. It's been 6 years since the first Doctor Strange movie came out. But the thing is, we haven't forgot about Doctor Strange because he was a big part in Infinity War and in Endgame. He was a big part in the Spider-Man stories. So like, the funny thing is, I mentioned this, I think it was my brother. 2016 was Doctor Strange. Okay. 2018 was the first Spider-Man movie. 2020 was the first, 2017, 2019, 2021 for the 3 Spider-Man movies. 3 Tom Holland Spider-Man movies came out in the span of time before Doctor Strange got his second movie. So like, an entire story arc with Tom Holland being Spider-Man started and ended before Doctor Strange got his second movie.
Which is like, I love that Doctor Strange was the character in No Way Home that played a part too. Like, it just makes him a character you expect to pop up everywhere, even on the fringes, and
I think that's the point. I think it's like, Doctor Strange's first movie came out 6 years ago, but in the same sense, we haven't forgotten about Doctor Strange because he's been a part in all these other movies, which is cool. So if you added all those small parts in all the other movies, you have Doctor Strange 1.5 and then Doctor Strange 2. So you have this, and I saw someone online trying to put together a list of like watching specific characters, like watching a Tony Stark like story arc by watching the movies that he's in, and including Spider-Man and all that stuff, and then watching like a Doctor Strange one and a Bruce Banner one, and that was pretty cool. And I think you get a lot out of Doctor Strange from 1 and then 1.5 and then 2 with the movies that are in between, and then seeing where he goes. Obviously, I think he's going to have a big part in the multiversal part of this, because I think they're using him as what would be the Fantastic Four, Reed Richards. In the comic book, they're using Doctor Strange as that person, along with probably America Chavez is probably be right next to him along the whole way, which is pretty cool in that side of it. So, you know what? It's the reason why I said off the top that it's not a madness, because I thought there was going to be this huge, like, oh my gosh, we've got to save the universes type thing in this. There was madness going on that I don't know the word madness. And again, it set us up for failure by calling it the madness, multiverse of madness. There was something in there that was really like, okay, we're stopping Wanda. Like, and we're also saving America Chavez, like, in a sense that, like, she might have just taken America Chavez's power, gone to the other multiverse, and lived happier. We never heard about Wanda again. So there's like this weird, like, I thought like the entire universes were all in jeopardy, when it seemed like it was a little less of that. So there wasn't, the madness wasn't really madness to my opinion.
I guess I felt like, for some reason too, like what happened in No Way Home was going to like set off this uncontrollable chain of events that then in Multiverse of Madness is, crazy. And so I was expecting kind of the No Way Home thing of like, enemies and people coming in from everywhere for this big fight that would then lead us on. So yeah, I think I loved it. It was smaller than I thought.
It was, because if you think about it, the only connection, so we have the connection to WandaVision because Wanda's in this, but like,
of course,
the multiverse of madness part of it, the only connection we had to any other introduction to a multiverse we had in this movie was a quick one-liner saying he dealt with it with Spider-Man, and then the what if stuff. But there was two other projects that come from Marvel that had, like, Spider-Man had a big multiversal thing that they didn't really touch on other than a line, and Loki. Like, there's a Loki thing that is a multiversal thing that's going on that hasn't been touched anywhere yet.
I maybe you just hit on it partially. I really felt like Loki was going to be more of like a backdrop to what's going on too, because that was so clearly a multiversal thing going on. So like, I don't even feel like there was that much. Was there any reference to it in? Yeah. See, that's wild. I feel like that's a major.
Well, and here's the deal. In Thor: Love and Thunder, in a post-credit scene in that movie, in a post-credit scene in Black Panther, is this weird that like the Spider-Man part in their multiverse and the multiverse of madness part in that multiverse and the Loki part, and that's what builds this whole Secret Wars battle world type thing where they're like it's not all connected. It's different strains in the multiverse that are going crazy that's causing this incursions and all that stuff. Maybe this incursion they're talking about in the post-credit scene with Clea is the incursion from the Loki series, not an incursion from the Doctor Strange series.
That could be, for sure.
So Clea, cool. Post-credit scene, touched on it. Nice little transition there.
Yep.
Clea, who's portrayed by Charlize Theron, which is a pretty cool casting. I thought that was great. So Clea in the comic books becomes Doctor Strange's wife. And so that's kind of a cool thing. It's kind of a cool that maybe they're going to forget about Christine Palmer, and this is now his partner. He's actually going to get a love interest in Clea. But currently in the actual 2022, 2021, 2022 comic book series, she is Sorcerer Supreme in the Marvel universe and in a series called Strange. But it's because Doctor Strange has passed away and she's trying to get the Sorcerer Supreme energy to bring him back from the dead. So
gotcha.
That could be a tie-in. It's probably not anything more than that, but they mentioned the incursion. They show the ripping of the thing, and they're going to talk about multiversal things in the next. Another downside. So at the end of the proper film, Doctor Strange gets his eye, right? It's his third eye because of probably with working with the Darkhold and using black magic and all that stuff. That was a great ending. We're like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? Third eye. Oh my gosh.
Yep.
To then go to a post-credit scene that kind of like already answers or kind of like just washes away what happened with the third eye. The fact that he's now just living with the third eye, and Clea shows up, and now they're going to take on the incursion stuff. But there was no like middle of that. Like, it felt like they made you go, oh my God, Doctor Strange has a third eye. This is amazing. To it doesn't matter, but there's no repercussions to the third eye. That now it's just he's going to go save the universes in with Clea. Like, it was a weird post-credit scene, in my opinion, that could have been different. It could have been,
and still leaves so many things open too. I mean, like, if it is like the influence of the Darkhold, like, then I guess that could still have a big impact on, because he can dream walk and just all that stuff. So
so to me it was a little bit weird. And then obviously we got touched on the post-credit scene, which was the Bruce Campbell saying it's over from the scene in the movie of him punching himself because of Doctor Strange. So as a whole, I thought the movie was fun. I think it was a Raimi film. If you like Raimi films, you're gonna love this film.
Yes. I
think there was good humor, like MCU has, good drama. I think good acting, amazing acting from most people in the movie. And as a whole, I'd probably put it around a 7, where I think I have Doctor Strange 1 at a 5 or a 6. So it is, like I said, it's better than the first one, in my opinion, but not nearly a supreme movie out there, because there's a lot of things that it could definitely work on. And I like Loki a lot, but some of the writing was a little hokey in this movie. Some of the lines were a little hokey, and then Raimi just had too much freedom to be.
And that was it. It was. I'm trying to think, as you said, I think I'd probably give it like a 6.5. But but let me qualify to people listening. If you like a Raimi film, and I do like a Raimi film, I can enjoy it as a Raimi film. It bothered me as a large Marvel film that got so much personal touch on it. Is my biggest complaint. Like, if this had been a smaller sub project, that would have been amazing. This is too big to have that much Evil Dead stamped on it. Yeah.
And here's the deal. I think when we start to rate these movies that we talked about in the Obi-Wan Kenobi episode and moving forward with our website, is I have a feeling I have a 100% okay with going back and changing our scores. This is not set in stone.
Oh yeah.
So again,
opinions change over time.
5 movies from now, you could go back and be like, this is a 7.5, 8, because now it makes sense. So I do think with the MCU compared to other movies, like, just random movies you watch on the screen, there's a bigger world to this. There's a bigger connection to this, so that other movies play into part of it. And I think because they do, you should be able to actually influence what your score is or what you like about a movie. That we should. If answers are made, update ours. Yeah. If answers are made 2 movies from now, then your 6.5 might be a 7 because you're like, okay, that makes sense.
Well, and as we've said, especially if it turns out it was like the most brilliant, subtle plot thing that you never saw, that'd be fun. And then we could keep an update so people know what we wrote previously and why we changed it. I think that'd be fantastic. I think it'd be great. So I think it was, like I said, it was worth watching for sure. I mean, there's definitely no things in there. Here's the deal though. I also feel like we used to just do theaters or home, and this is a movie you could watch at home. I think the music and the scores and the effects and all that stuff is cool to see in a theater. But this is definitely another one of those movies that you could have waited. It was okay to wait to watch on Disney Plus because of that. So I think as we move forward, there are going to be certain movies you're like, no, go see that in the theaters. And in Endgame, Infinity War, those are theater movies. Yes.
This movie is more of a home watching.
One, like we've said, I'm going to go to the theater for Love and Thunder. Like,
so that's the next big Marvel product. My Miss Marvel finishes up. Watch that. It's really good.
Yes, really good.
It's a different spin on things, but watch that on Disney Plus, and check out all of our other stuff, our articles and stuff like that on capesandtights.com, buddy. So again, the multiverse is here. We'll see where it goes. We'll see how it wraps up. We may be talking 5 years from now on this podcast about how it wrapped up. But as of right now, it's here, and I think it's here to stay for a little while at least. We'll see what happens.
And that kind of makes it fun. We talked on our episode about Obi-Wan about writing some articles, kind of giving some background and some primers. And this could be fun too, because now we're starting, like you said, seeing the 97 animated series coming in, some video game stuff coming in. So that'd be some fun little articles to write too.
So check us out at capesandtights.com, social media, Spotify, Apple, all those things. Adam, I guess I'll catch you in the multiverse, right?
Always.